March 1944, Northern France. Staff Sergeant Daniel Mercer stands on the wet steel planking of RAF DFM green before dawn. The fog hangs low over the airfield, swallowing the outlines of olive drab bombers. He pulls his fleece-lined B3 jacket tighter around his shoulders and looks up at the shape, waiting for him in the dark. The aircraft's black-painted belly makes it almost invisible against the night sky. The Avro Lancaster looms like a cathedral of war for Merlin engines, twin .303 Browning turrets, and a bomb bay capable of carrying 14,000 pounds of high explosive. Inside Germany, they call it the terror bomber. Tonight, they are flying deep into the Reich. Daniel is the flight engineer, 22 years old. From Ohio, his job is to manage fuel mixture, engine temperatures. Hydraulics keep the machine alive when flak tears at its skin. Across the dispersal pad, British ground crew in all stained coveralls finish arming the load. 1 for 1,000-pound cookie blast bomb, surrounded by incendiaries. The target, Augsburg, an industrial hub feeding the German war machine. Engines start in 5. The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Arthur Reeves, says calmly, climbing into the cockpit. Daniel follows him up the narrow ladder. Inside, the Lancaster smells of cold aluminum, oil, and canvas. He straps in beside Reeves. Below them, the bomb aimer settles into the glazed nose. The wireless operator checks his headset. The rear gunner jokes softly over intercom, but his voice carries a tight edge. They all know what waits beyond the channel. German night defenses are tightening. Radar stations along the coast, searchlight belts, and above all, the new predator that stalks the darkness the fast. Twin-engine Messerschmitt Bf 110, fitted with upward-firing cannons. The Germans call the tactic Schrägmusik. It turns bombers into burning coffins. The Merlins cough, then roar alive one by one. Vibrations rattle through Daniel's boots. He studies his gauges, all pressure steady, RPM synchronized. Ready, he says quietly. The Lancaster rolls forward into thick mist. One by one, other bombers follow. Red navigation lights blinking like distant embers. Takeoff is violent. The heavy aircraft shudders down the runway, bombs weighing her down. At the last second, she lifts, wheels tucking in. England disappears beneath cloud. Hours later, over the North Sea, Daniel watches frost creep along the inside of the canopy. Oxygen masks on, breath shallow. The intercom crackles with reports from the formation. Then the navigator's voice cuts through. Crossing enemy coast, now. Below, the darkness of Nazi Germany stretches endless and silent. And somewhere in that black sky, engines are already rising to meet them. The North Sea vanishes behind cloud. Ahead, the German coastline appears only as a darker band against the night. Daniel Mercer adjusts the fuel mixture levers with steady hands, eyes flicking between all pressure and manifold boost. The 4 Merlin engines hum in uneasy harmony. Flak expected at Emden, the navigator says quietly. Inside the Lancaster, red instrument lights cast hollow shadows across tired faces. No one speaks more than necessary. The bomber stream stretches for miles, hundreds of aircraft moving like a silent river toward the Reich. Then the first searchlight snaps on. A white spear of light punches through the darkness below. Another joins it, then 5, then 20. They sweep the sky methodically, hunting. Stay tight, Flight Lieutenant Reeves mutters. The Lancaster banks slightly to maintain formation. Daniel feels the G-force press into his ribs. Through the cockpit glass, he sees the Ruhr defenses coming. Alive searchlight cones crisscrossing like prison bars in the sky. Suddenly, the aircraft shudders. Black bursts bloom around them. German 88mm flak. The shockwaves slap the fuselage like giant fists. Fragments rattle against aluminum skin. Daniel watches his gauges, all pressure holding. Starboard inner engine running hot. Temps climbing on number 3, he says. Reeves nods but doesn't look away from the windscreen. Keep her steady. Below, anti-aircraft batteries defend the industrial heartland of the Reich. Somewhere, beneath that smoke and steel lies Augsburg, the Messerschmitt factory complex, supplying fighters to the Luftwaffe. A burst explodes close to close. The aircraft jerks violently, hydraulics pressure fluctuating. Daniel calls. The bomb aimer's voice cuts in from the nose. Searchlights locking us. A blinding beam snaps onto them. Then another. The Lancaster is trapped in intersecting white columns, glowing like a target in a carnival game. Flak intensifies instantly. The fuselage rings with shrapnel strikes. The rear gunner curses as tracers streak upward from the ground. Braking left. Reeves shouts. The Lancaster dives shallow, engine screaming. Daniel fights the throttles to prevent overboost. His gloves are slick with sweat despite the freezing temperature. They slip out of the beams but only for a moment. The wireless operator's voice comes sharp and urgent. Fighter on radar contact. Closing fast. Below us. Daniel's stomach tightens. They all know what that means. Somewhere in the darkness beneath their belly, a night fighter is positioning. Silent. Invisible. The twin-engine Predator rises carefully into their blind spot. The German ace at the controls of a Messerschmitt Bf 110 lines up beneath the bomber, cannons angled upward. Schrich music. Upward firing guns designed to tear open a Lancaster's fuel tanks without warning. Daniel stares into the black void below. He sees nothing, and that is what terrifies him most. A sudden metallic clang erupts under their feet. The explosion feels like a hammer striking bone. Daniel is thrown forward against his harness as the Lancaster lurches violently to starboard. Warning lights flare red across the instrument panel. The intercom erupts with overlapping voices. Hit. We've been hit. A deafening roar fills the cockpit. The starboard inner engine screams beyond normal pitch. Daniel smells it immediately burning fuel. Number 3's on fire, he shouts. Flames lick past the wing root, flickering orange against the night. The German night fighter has struck perfectly upward. Cannon shells ripping through. The fuel tank. Feather it, Reeves orders. Daniel's gloved hands move automatically. Throttle back. Mixture cut. Prop feather lever pulled. The engine windmills, then slows, blades slicing the air uselessly. But the fire doesn't die. Hydraulic pressure collapses further. The Lancaster begins to lose altitude. In the tail turret, the rear gunner's voice cracks through static. I saw him. Twin engine. Just dropped away. The Messerschmitt Bf 110 has already vanished back into darkness, hunting its next victim. Daniel activates the fire extinguisher system. A burst of suppressant gas floods the engine housing. For a moment, the flames shrink, then another flak burst detonates off their port side. The shockwave rattles the aircraft again. Bomb run into minutes. The navigator calls. 2 minutes. They are losing height. One engine dead, hydraulics unstable, and they are still loaded with a 4,000-pound blast bomb. Can we make the target? The bomb aimer asks, voice steady but thin. Reeves hesitates. Daniel studies the gauges. Fuel bleeding from punctured lines. Airspeed dropping below safe formation speed. If they turn back now, they might limp to England. If they continue, they fly straight into the heart of German defenses. Reeves makes the decision. We finish the run. No one argues. The Lancaster steadies as best it can on 3 engines. Below them, Augsburg emerges dim shapes of factory roofs and rail yards. Searchlights sweep wildly, catching other bombers in their glare. One erupts into flame, spiraling down like a falling star. Bomb doors open, the bomb aimer reports. The hydraulic system groans but responds. The aircraft shudders as cold air floods the bomb bay. Daniel watches engine temperatures carefully. The remaining Merlins strain under asymmetric load. If another engine fails, they will not stay airborne. Flak thickens over the target. Black bursts surround them like volcanic eruptions. Steady, steady. The bomb aimer whispers. The Lancaster flies straight and level most vulnerable position imaginable. A searchlight brushes them again. Almost. Hold it. Daniel grips the panel. Bomb's gone. The aircraft leaps upward as the weight drops away. But relief lasts only seconds. A violent metallic crack echoes from the fuselage. Fuel tank ruptured. We're losing pressure fast. The wing fire reignites, brighter than before. Below, Augsburg burns. The Lancaster shudders like a wounded animal. Flames tear backward along the starboard wing, whipped by the slipstream. The cockpit fills with the sharp, metallic smell of burning aluminum and leaking fuel. Daniel's oxygen mask fogs with every breath. Fire spreading. The mid-upper gunner shouts. Daniel slams the second extinguisher control. The warning light flickers but does not go out. Fuel pressure drops rapidly. The remaining engines strain unevenly, pulling the aircraft sideways. Altitude, 9,000 feet, and falling. Jettison everything loose, Reeves orders. We're lightening her. Maps, empty ammo belts, anything not bolted down is thrown aside. But it's not enough. The fire creeps closer to the main spar. If it reaches that, Daniel doesn't finish the thought. Prepare to bail out, Reeves says, voice controlled but final. The words hang in the intercom like a death sentence. The rear gunner answers first. Understood. Each man knows the routine. Parachutes already clipped. Escape hatches memorized. But they are deep inside Germany. Capture is certain. Survival is not. Daniel unstraps, legs shaking from cold and adrenaline. He glances once more at the instrument panel, the gauges. He has guarded like a lifeline. Now meaningless. The Lancaster jolts violently again. A loud crack echoes through the fuselage. Starboard wings breaking up. The bomb aimer yells from the nose. Smoke floods the cockpit. Daniel crawls toward the escape hatch behind the pilot's seat. He feels heat radiating through the fuselage skin. Reeves keeps one hand on the controls. "I'll hold her steady," he says quietly. "Go." Daniel hesitates. For a second, he sees the man not as a pilot, but as a father mid-30s, wedding ring glinting in red light. "Sir, that's an order." The Lancaster begins to roll right. Daniel pulls the hatch release. Freezing air blasts inside. The night below is endless black, broken only by distant fires in Augsburg. One by one, the crew disappears into the void. The mid-upper gunner jumps, then the wireless operator. The aircraft tilts harder. Daniel grips the frame. Wind roars like a hurricane. Behind him, Reeves finally lets go of the controls. The burning Lancaster rolls inverted, spiraling. Daniel jumps. For several seconds, there is only tumbling darkness and the scream of wind. He counts 1, 2, 3. He pulls the ripcord. The parachute snaps open violently, wrenching his body upward. Silence. Above him, the Lancaster explodes mid-air, a bright white flash against the night. The wreckage falls in burning fragments toward Nazi soil. Daniel hangs alone beneath his canopy. Below, searchlights sweep the countryside, and somewhere in that darkness, German soldiers are already moving to find him. Daniel drifts downward through cold, silent air. The only sound is the faint snap of his parachute canopy and the distant echo of explosions fading behind him. Below, the German countryside stretches in patches of darkness and pale moonlight fields. Narrow roads, clusters of farmhouses. He forces himself to breathe slowly. Training returns in fragments. Land. Hide the chute. Avoid roads. Head west. The ground rises faster than he expects. He bends his knees. Impact. He hits hard in a plowed field, rolling into frozen earth. Pain shoots up his ankle, but nothing breaks. He scrambles to his feet, dragging the silk canopy toward a hedgerow. In the distance, dogs begin barking. A truck engine growls somewhere beyond the trees. He fights the parachute into the mud, shoving fabric beneath frozen soil and brush. His hands shake not from cold, but from the knowledge that he is alone, unarmed except for a .38 revolver and a few ration bars. Then headlights appear. Two beams sweep across the field's edge. Voices shout in German. Daniel drops flat against the earth. Boots crunch over frost. A flashlight beam cuts through darkness, passing only yards from him. He presses his face into the mud, barely breathing. Higher, falls Kerm. Someone calls out. They've found the parachute. The beam moves closer. He considers running, but the field is open, exposed. He would be cut down instantly. A rifle bolt snaps into place. Stehen SI off. A voice commands sharply. The flashlight blinds him. Daniel slowly raises his hands. 3 German soldiers in field gray uniforms stand over him. Stahlhelm helmets. Kar 98K rifles trained at his chest. One carries a submachine gun slung across his shoulder. He feels a strange calm settle in. The sergeant steps forward, studying the American wings on Daniel's jacket. Flieger, the German mutters. They search him quickly. Map, compass, revolver taken. One soldier removes his dog tags, reading the stamped letters under dim light. Staff Sergeant Mercer, he pronounces awkwardly. Daniel says nothing. A truck approaches, its engine coughing in the cold. Painted on the side is the black cross of the Wehrmacht. He is pushed into the back, sitting between 2 armed guards. The tailgate slams shut. As the truck drives away, he looks once toward the eastern sky. Smoke still rises faintly where Augsburg burns. He does not know who survived. He does not know if Reeves ever jumped. The truck passes through a small village. Civilians stare from doorways, some silent, some bitter. A woman spits near the wheels as they pass. The war feels closer here, personal. After an hour, they reach a larger compound surrounded by barbed wire and floodlights. A sign stands at the gate. Kriegsgefangener, prisoner of war camp. The gates open with a metallic groan. Daniel steps down into Nazi captivity, and beyond the wire, unseen eyes are already watching the new arrivals. The gates close behind Daniel with a heavy metallic crash. Inside the compound, floodlights burn against the night sky. Barbed wire coils in double layers along tall wooden fences. Guard towers stand at each corner. Silhouettes of sentries visible behind mounted machine guns. A wooden sign identifies the camp, Stalag VII-A, near Moosburg in Bavaria, the largest POW camp in Germany. Daniel joins a small group of captured airmen herded across the frozen yard. Boots crunch over gravel. A German corporal with a clipboard calls out names in broken English. Name, rank, number. Daniel repeats the only information he is allowed to give. Nothing more. They are searched again, photographed, fingerprinted. Personal items confiscated. His flight engineer badge disappears into a canvas sack along with his watch. Inside a dim processing barrack, he finally removes his oxygen mask, stiff with frost. His face feels older than 22. Across the room, another American catches his eye, a waist gunner from AB-17, bandaged above one eyebrow. "You from the Augsburg raid?" the man whispers. Daniel nods once. Rough night. No one elaborates. By morning, they are marched toward their assigned compound. The camp is overcrowded. French, Soviet, British, and American prisoners move behind separate wire sections. Hunger shows in hollow cheeks. Coats are patched, boots worn thin. Daniel is placed in a wooden barrack with 50 other airmen. Triple-tier bunks, a potbelly stove in the center with barely enough coal to warm hands. The air smells of damp wool and boiled cabbage. At roll call that afternoon, he notices something unexpected beyond the far fence line. Another enclosure separated by additional wire and guards. Women, uniformed, thin, standing in formation under armed supervision. He frowns. A British prisoner beside him mutters quietly, "That's the special labor detail. Captured resistance. A few airwomen too. They keep them separate." Daniel watches as one of the women, hair cut short, coat hanging loosely over narrow shoulders, glances toward the men's compound. Their eyes meet for a fraction of a second. Not fear. Defiance. A German guard barks an order and shoves her back into line. That night, inside the barrack, Daniel lies awake listening to distant coughing and the creak of timber walls. The war feels far away here, no engines, no flak, but the tension is constant. Men speak in low voices about escape tunnels, about Red Cross parcels, about rumors of Allied advances in Italy and the Eastern Front. But no one mentions the women. Near midnight, footsteps crunch outside. A spotlight sweeps across the barrack windows. Daniel turns on his side, staring at the ceiling beams. He survived the sky. Now he must survive this. And beyond the wire. Something about that woman's unbroken stare refuses to leave his mind. Morning frost clings to the barbed wire like shattered glass. Daniel stands in formation for appel roll call, boots numb against frozen gravel. German guards in field gray greatcoats pace in front of the rows. Rifles slung, breath steaming in the cold Bavarian air. A siren wails briefly from beyond the perimeter. Not an air raid. Work detail. Across the yard, the women's compound gate creaks open. Daniel keeps his head forward, but his eyes shift just enough to see. They march out in small groups under heavy guard. No insignia, now only worn civilian coats and patched uniforms. Some carry tools. Others carry nothing but exhaustion. The same woman he noticed the night before walks near the front. Her jaw is set. A bruise darkens one cheekbone. A British corporal beside Daniel whispers without moving his lips. "They're from France. Resistance couriers. Picked up after the rail sabotage last summer." Daniel feels a tightening in his chest. The column of women passes close to the men's compound fence. For a moment, their eyes meet again. This time, she does not look away. A guard notices. He steps forward sharply and strikes her across the shoulder with the butt of his rifle. Not hard enough to cripple, just enough to humiliate. She stumbles but does not cry out. Daniel's fists clench instinctively. The American next to him murmurs, "Don't." The warning is not about rules. It is about survival. The German sergeant overseeing appel scans the ranks. Any reaction could mean solitary confinement, or worse. Daniel forces his expression flat. The women are marched toward a distant industrial yard outside the main camp. Smoke rises from factory chimneys beyond the trees. Forced labor feeding the same war machine he bombed from the sky. Later that afternoon, Daniel's own work detail is assigned to clear debris near a rail, spur damaged during a recent Allied bombing raid. Guarded closely, they shovel frozen earth and twisted metal. He works in silence until he hears a familiar voice, soft, accented English. "You are in the sky." He turns slightly. She is there, only a few yards away, lifting broken bricks into a cart. A guard stands between their groups, smoking and half watching. Daniel answers carefully, "Yes." She studies him quickly. "You burned." He nods once. She gives the smallest, almost invisible smile. "Good." Before he can respond, the guard shouts an order and forces the groups apart. But something has shifted. That night, back inside the barrack, Daniel stares at the wooden ceiling again. The camp feels less silent now, less empty. He does not know her name. He does not know how long she has been here. But he knows this. The war has followed them both to this place of wire and frost. And if he is to survive captivity, it will not be by enduring alone. Outside, a searchlight sweeps slowly across the snow-covered yard. And beyond the fence, distant artillery rumbles faintly in the east. Morning frost clings to the barbed wire like shattered glass. Daniel stands in formation for appel roll call, boots numb against frozen gravel. German guards in field gray greatcoats pace in front of the rows, rifles slung, breath steaming in the cold Bavarian air. A siren wails briefly from beyond the perimeter. Not an air raid. Work detail. Across the yard, the women's compound gate creaks open. Daniel keeps his head forward, but his eyes shift just enough to see. They march out in small groups under heavy guard. No insignia, now only worn civilian coats and patched uniforms. Some carry tools. Others carry nothing but exhaustion. The same woman he noticed the night before walks near the front. Her jaw is set. A bruise darkens one cheekbone. A British corporal beside Daniel whispers without moving his lips. They're from France. Resistance couriers. Picked up after the rails sabotaged last summer. Daniel feels a tightening in his chest. The column of women passes close to the men's compound fence. For a moment, their eyes meet again. This time, she does not look away. A guard notices. He steps forward sharply and strikes her across the shoulder with the butt of his rifle. Not hard enough to cripple, just enough to humiliate. She stumbles but does not cry out. Daniel's fists clench instinctively. The American next to him murmurs, "Don't." The warning is not about rules. It is about survival. The German sergeant overseeing Appel scans the ranks. Any reaction could mean solitary confinement, or worse. Daniel forces his expression flat. The women are marched toward a distant industrial yard outside the main camp. Smoke rises from factory chimneys beyond the trees. Forced labor feeding the same war machine he bombed from the sky. Later that afternoon, Daniel's own work detail is assigned to clear debris near a rail spur damaged during a recent Allied bombing raid. Guarded closely, they shovel frozen earth and twisted metal. He works in silence until he hears a familiar voice, soft, accented English. "You are in the sky." He turns slightly. She is there, only a few yards away, lifting broken bricks into a cart. A guard stands between their groups, smoking and half watching. Daniel answers carefully, "Yes." She studies him quickly. "You burned." He nods once. She gives the smallest, almost invisible smile. "Good." Before he can respond, the guard shouts an order and forces the groups apart. But something has shifted. That night, back inside the barrack, Daniel stares at the wooden ceiling again. The camp feels less silent now, less empty. He does not know her name. He does not know how long she has been here. But he knows this. The war has followed them both to this place of wire and frost. And if he is to survive captivity, it will not be by enduring alone. Outside, a searchlight sweeps slowly across the snow-covered yard. And beyond the fence, distant artillery rumbles faintly in the east. The transport yard is silent before dawn. Snow crunches under boots as guards assemble prisoners. Beside a line of waiting freight cars. No passenger coaches, just wooden cattle wagons with sliding doors. Daniel stands at the edge of the men's compound fence, watching through the wire. Claire stands among the selected women, hands clasped behind her back. No luggage, no blankets, just the clothes she wears. A German sergeant reads names again to confirm numbers. 23 women. Daniel feels something inside him harden. Behind him, inside the barrack, the British corporal whispers urgently, "Tunnel breaks the outer fence by tonight, but only 4, maybe 5 can get out before roll call." 4. Daniel looks back at the freight cars. If the women leave, they will be moved deeper into Germany, away from the advancing front, away from any chance of liberation. A guard shoves Claire toward the wagon. She stumbles on the icy ground but regains her footing. Their eyes meet across to fences and a yard full of rifles. There is no plea in her expression, only recognition. Daniel turns and walks quickly back into the barrack. The corporal looks up. "You're not thinking." "Yes," Daniel answers. The tunnel opening is hidden beneath a stoveplate. Earth has been carried out in trouser legs for weeks. It is narrow, cold mud reinforced with scrap wood. "For only," the corporal repeats. Daniel nods. "Then for." He grabs his worn gloves and moves toward the women's compound fence at the rear corner, where the tunnel exits beyond both perimeters, into a drainage ditch. Timing will be everything. Outside, engines rumble as a Opel Blitz truck backs into position near the rail line. Additional guards take posts along the yard. Snow thickens, blurring sightlines. A distraction is needed. At morning roll call, as the transport detail forms, one American prisoner collapses deliberately in the front rank. Shouting erupts. Guards rush forward. A whistle blows. In that moment of confusion, Daniel slips along the inner fence toward the blind corner, near the women's compound. He hisses softly. Claire turns her head. He gestures small, urgent toward the rear wire. She understands immediately. As guards focus on restoring order in the yard, Claire and 3 others drift subtly out of line under the cover of snow and commotion. Daniel drops to his knees in the ditch beyond the outer fence, pulling back the concealed plank. Mud. Darkness. Freedom measured in yards. Boots crunch closer. A guard shouts something sharp in German. Claire reaches the tunnel entrance. Behind her, a rifle bolt snaps into place. Daniel extends his hand. Now. Gunfire cracks across the yard, and the freight train whistle screams. Gunfire splits the frozen morning. Snow erupts around Daniel as a bullet slams into the ditch bank inches from his hand. Claire dives forward without hesitation, sliding into the tunnel opening. The three women follow in terrified silence. Loss, loss, a German guard shouts. Another rifle cracks. Daniel grips Claire's arm and pulls her fully into the drainage ditch beyond the outer wire. The tunnel behind them collapses slightly as a round punches through the wooden supports. Inside the yard, chaos spreads. American prisoners surge forward, shouting, creating confusion. Guards fire warning shots into the air. A siren wails from the watchtower. Run, Daniel whispers. They sprint low along the frozen ditch line, using the shallow depression for cover. Snow reduces visibility. Breath burns in their lungs. Behind them, engines roar as the Opel Blitz lurches forward. Guards scrambling aboard. A searchlight snaps on, cutting through falling snow. Daniel leads them toward a thin line of trees bordering the rail yard. His ankle protests with every step, but adrenaline drowns the pain. Another burst of gunfire tears branches above their heads. One of the women stumbles. Claire grabs her, refusing to leave her behind. They reach the tree line and plunge into forest shadow. For several seconds, there is only ragged breathing and the distant shouting of German voices. Daniel turns west by instinct. We keep moving, he says quietly. Claire nods. There is a farm to kilometers. Old man. He hides radio parts. How do you know? I carried messages before they caught me. The forest thins into open fields. Smoke drifts low across the horizon, not from factories this time, but from artillery. A deep, rolling thunder trembles through the earth. Daniel stops. That sound is different. Closer, from the west. A shape appears on a distant ridge beyond the fields low. Armored. Unmistakable. Then another. Olive drab. White star. The unmistakable silhouette of M for Sherman. German guards emerge from the trees behind them, shouting in panic as they realize what approaches. A machine gun chatters from the Sherman's turret. The guards scatter. Daniel turns back toward Claire. For a moment, neither speaks. He looks at her not as a prisoner, not as a symbol of defiance, but as someone who endured the same sky, the same fire, the same wire. The Sherman tanks roll forward through falling snow, engines growling, crushing the frozen earth that once confined them. The war is not over, but the wire behind them no longer holds. Claire exhales slowly. You were not afraid, she says softly. Daniel shakes his head. Yes, he answers. I was. The first American infantrymen crest the ridge, rifles ready, scanning the camp in the distance. Behind them, smoke rises from Stalag VII-A. Ahead of them, liberation begins.